Before I learned, I had attended many lectures and seminars, read many books on leadership. I found them contradictory and confusing, so I welcomed when I learned about servant leadership. I was a brand new lieutenant in the Second World War in the Corps of Engineers, and I'd been sent out to Boise, Idaho, join a unit preparing to go to the Pacific. We were out in the semi-desert on a training mission, and it was horrible, hot and dreary, and we came back into camp and we had set up a mess tent. And I was hungry and the men were hungry, we were all tired. The men were lined up to get their meal, and I'm a second lieutenant, so I start to walk up to the head of the line to get my meal, and this old Army sergeant comes over and taps me on the shoulder and says he'd like to see me. We walked off, and he said, "Lieutenant, when all the men are fed, if there's anything left for you to eat, you get to eat." And then he said, "By the way, Lieutenant, when they're all bedded down, if there's any place for you to get down, you get to sleep." And he walked away. That took 2 minutes. Was the greatest lesson in leadership of my life. I've lived with it ever since. But there's another thing about it. Think of the courage it took that sergeant to do that. Just think, he came over and really lectured me. I think that's another part of the lesson of servant leadership. Be sure that your people understand you want to hear from them, that they're free to speak. He will be first, will be last. And I've lived with that. Now I'm 97. Serving others, putting others before yourself, making them the important thing. I think the way it may be understood, when I was working, I used to ask myself 2 questions as I walk into work every day. The first question was, if nobody showed up today, how much could I get done? Easy answer, nothing. You're dependent on others to accomplish anything. And when you realize that, then you realize that you need to serve them. The other question I asked myself is very difficult to answer. The question was, if I didn't have the authority of this office, would anybody follow me? That's a tough question. Nothing important normally happens in society without leadership. In all facets of our life, in our government, in our business world, yes, and even in our churches, we need leadership. We need someone who sets the path and inspires others to come along that path and to create something. Without leadership, we just squander. I think a young person who respects the contemporaries that he's with, that even naturally starts showing some leadership characteristics in the group. At almost any age, there was always some young person in the group that started to lead the group. To some degree, leadership is a natural characteristic. But I want to stress, to some degree. To be effective, you have to take that natural characteristic and develop the "he will be first" characteristics of leadership. I think we are desperate for some real leadership. Too much of the leadership we have is all about me. There are certain natural characteristics in some young people, and I'm sure all of us remember when we were growing up at each stage, there was always someone in the group that seemed to exercise some form of leadership or telling the group what to do or how to do it. So there is that characteristic. However, for the person to really become an effective leader, you have to take that characteristic and develop it, and they have to grow into understanding servant leadership. Now, I don't mean to be negative. We have leaders, but I'm saying truly effective leaders. Leaders who inspire people, leaders who bring people along. That's where we're lacking. One of the most effective leaders that I ever knew was General MacArthur. I mean, he was a fabulous leader. He inspired the troops. And then I would coming along, I would call Ronald Reagan an effective leader. They're the type of people that I recall. The first thing that's difficult is putting yourself out of the front position. I think it's difficult to learn the elements of servant leadership. But once one understands the joy of that and the fulfillment of that, then it comes very easily. In the beginning, I guess it's hard on your ego. You know, we all want it to be all about me, but then you have to put that aside. There are two types of leaders. There are appointed leaders and real leaders. Appointed leaders have a title, and to a large degree, appointed leaders lead with the authority of their office. And therefore, there is a title to that office. A real leader doesn't need a title, and he doesn't need to have any authority, because a real leader has developed with his people their desire to follow him. And they make him what he is, and they follow him without the authority or the title. I feel there is an awakening in the country for a need for real leadership. I mean, particularly if you look at the political scene today, almost all the way across America, there's a dissatisfaction with our political process and with Washington. And I think that's all a result of the fact that Washington isn't doing their job of serving the people. They're serving themselves. So I'm encouraged that people are becoming, if you will, dissatisfied with our leadership and are seeking. I think what a wonderful time it is for a real leader to step up. It's a fabulous time, because people are looking, searching for leaders that they want to follow. Let's hope we come forth with them. Encourage them, teach them. I mean, there's so much that we can teach our children. I'm not talking about in school, I'm talking about in the home. I wish I was young and had young children again now, because I would certainly work with them about servant leadership. I think we can do a lot in the home with our children, and we ought to stop depending on their total education being in the school. One of the first things I would teach them is a work ethic. The joy of work, and I would elaborate on that to a great extent, so they would understand that work is not a burden, it's a fulfillment. Well, passion means putting your whole being in, making it something that you just have to be involved in, something you have to accomplish, something that is a joy to you. It's a fulfillment. You should be passionate as a leader. The fulfillment of seeing the people you're responsible for, enjoying what they're doing, growing in what they're doing, feeling a great sense of satisfaction in what they're doing. What's better than that? I tried desperately to have them know that I respected them and admired them. I tried to be close to them. I'd walk through the facility, and Christmas I'd walk through and shake everybody's hand. But then, finally I wanted them to completely understand the company and what we were doing. So I started a series of letters entitled Sharing Some Thoughts, and they were about what we are as a company. And I wrote them over a period of years. And I mailed them into the homes, because I wanted the homes to know, not just the associate. And much to my surprise, when I had finished that, unbeknownst to me, they put them into a book and presented me with a book that told me that I did the right thing. I then wrote another series of letters, One Man's Opinion, and that was about what we are as a people. We tried to have the right kind of things for them. That's what the park was out there, what the swimming pool was. We had a pension in those days, and then we had something that I think was important. We had profit sharing. You see, with profit sharing, that ties people into the importance of profit. It isn't profit just for the investor, it's profit that they can share in. That's a great incentive, you know. I was retired some years. I won't take all the credit for that, but there's a lady named Sherry Christie, and she worked for an advertising agency in Columbus. She now lives in Maine. And she had helped me with those letters that I wrote into the home. Well, she got on my case after I retired for several years that I should write a book. I finally succumbed. What you are speaks so loud I can't hear what you say. That's my most favorite saying. It's on the wall right over there. My wife put it in the frame in 1947. So it's been on the kitchen wall since 1947. What you are speaks so loud I can't hear what you say. Isn't that true?